All right. Okay. Yay, we're all here. We made it. We've been kind of stressing a little bit. Where's the link? Why isn't it working? So I'm so glad that we're all finally here. Let me go ahead and just say welcome to the kindergarten teachers of Arkansas. We're so glad that you're here joining us. And I'm just so excited that there is a way for you guys to connect with one another and get support from other kindergarten teachers in the district. So I'm just so glad that you are a part of this group and this team. And I know some people are just beginning this solution tree PLC process. Some people are model school status. So we kind of have a whole gamut in this group and a part of this team. So some of the stuff that you hear today, you're probably going to be thinking, oh, I know that. We already do that, but there might be some other people on this Zoom that haven't heard some of that information. So you might hear some repeated information that you already know and that you're already an expert on. So, but we want to make sure that everybody gets on the same page. And plus, it doesn't hurt to hear things more than once. I know I've been to some of the solution tree conferences, and I hear something new each time I go. So it's good to hear that repetition. And as kindergarten teachers, you know how many times you have to hear something before it becomes concrete in our brains. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I am Dana Rackley. I'm the assistant principal at Spradling Elementary School, which is part of the Fort Smith Public School System. We are on year 5 of working with Solution Tree, and we have reached model school status. So that was a lot of hard work, and we're very proud of that. So we're excited about that. I have been in education for, I think it's been 25 years now. So that's who I am. So let's go on to the other presenters.
Hi, I'm Alexi Cuevas. I am a kindergarten teacher at Spradling Elementary. This is my 5th year in the PLC process. The year that I got hired was actually the year that we began the PLC process, so it's all I know. I taught 3rd grade the first 2 years when we started, and then I moved down to kindergarten and been teaching kindergarten the last 2 years.
Okay, hi, I'm Johnny Rogers, and I have been in education for 14 years. 4 years I taught in 2nd grade, and for 2 years I taught 1st grade. Then I've been in kindergarten for 8 years, and of those 8 years, I've been doing the PLC process for 7 years. So,
hi, I'm Karen Smith. And I've been with the Fort Smith Public School District for 30 years. My entire teaching career has been in kindergarten. So that's a lot of years in kindergarten. The last 7 years, I've been involved with the PLC process. So we are maintaining our model school status, and we're excited about that.
All right. Okay, I'm going to work on sharing my screen here. Can you all see it yet? Alexi, I might need your help.
Do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that, because for some reason it's not. And I'm going to let some people in from the waiting room also. There we go. And guys, there is a mosquito flying around my office. So if you see me do, I'm trying to get this mosquito. There we go. All right, here is our agenda for today. As you can see, we do have a couple of breaks and then also a lunch time, but those are all of the areas that we are going to discuss and present some information on today. So there's your little agenda for the day. Okay, we're going to start with just some foundational information, the foundation of the professional learning community. And oh, wait, go ahead, go back. One thing that we need to keep in mind and is often confused is a lot of people, they'll meet with their grade level team and they'll say, oh, I'm going to my PLC meeting. Well, that's your team meeting. That's part of the whole umbrella of the PLC team. So your school building or your entire district, depending on how you're set up, is the PLC. That is your professional learning community. Your grade level is just one of your teams. Guiding Coalition might be one of your teams. Any of those other committees are just part of your teams. You're not just going to your PLC meeting. When you do have a meeting or you're meeting with your grade level team or anybody in your school system, make sure that everyone has an understanding of the same vocabulary. There's a lot of vocabulary that we hear that we think we know what it means, but you want to make sure that everybody in your room understands for sure what you mean by that particular word. You don't want to assume that everybody is on the same page on that. Same thing with acronyms. Educators, we are known for throwing around acronyms like crazy. There's an acronym for everything, but you want to make sure that everybody that's on your team, everybody that's in your building understands what you're saying when you're just throwing around some acronyms. Make sure they know what that really stands for and what that means. Guys, we have, several of us have been in education for a long time. I don't know how many of you are brand new to education, but this is hard work. It is hard work, and we need to share the work. We don't want to just be running around playing whack-a-mole. We need to support each other, work together, because there's a whole lot to do to work for these little guys. And I want you to be able to work with those in your building, those in your entire district or the state, to work together and to support each other. Today, a lot of what we're going to be doing is referring to the Learning by Doing book. And I'm sure most of you have this book. This is the foundational book to the Solution Tree professional learning community process. So on the screens, you'll see little page numbers, and they're referring to those page numbers. So if you're taking notes, you can jot down which page we're referring to so that you can read further on and continue learning about that. All right, next screen. 3 of the big ideas through Solution Tree with this whole process is, number 1, a focus on learning. And that's what this is all about, is the learning that the children do. Not just the teaching, okay, because we can stand up in front of the room all day long teaching, but the whole focus is on, did they learn it? So that's the number 1 big idea that Solution Tree uses. Number 2 is a collaborative culture and collective responsibility. These are all our kids, not just mine, not just theirs. They're all of our kids. And results orientation. Obviously, the result we want is student growth and achievement. There's also, go ahead and go to the next slide, please, ma'am. There are 4 critical questions that Solution Tree uses that drive the entire process and to drive our thinking in everything we do. The first one is, what is it we want our students to know and be able to do? So what are those essential standards? What do they have to have before they go on to first grade? What are those essential goals, those essential targets that we want for them? Number 2, how will we know if the students have learned it? Well, we do that with our assessments, the CFAs and the CSAs, and there will be a section on that. CFAs being Common Formative Assessment, CSA is Common Summative Assessment. Number 3, how will we respond when some students do not learn it? And those are our interventions. And how will we extend the learning for the students who have demonstrated proficiency? That's our enrichments. So number 3 and 4 are all part of that RTI process, and where we need to place students in order for them to get those essential skills from number 1. Okay, when you are beginning all of this process, go ahead and go to the next screen. Your building needs a guiding coalition. The guiding coalition is like your leadership team. You may already have a leadership team within your building. And it's very important that you get the right people plugged in to the guiding coalition. If you've read Jim Collins, he often talks about getting the right people on the bus. And that's what you want for your guiding coalition. You want the right people on the bus. You want people who are trustworthy. They are respected educators in your building. They're knowledgeable about educational practices, what is best for kids, the process of the PLC process. But you want the right people on the bus because they are they're making decisions for the entire school. So you definitely want to make sure that you choose people that are willing to live the mission, that they're going to champion that mission and the vision and help keep everyone accountable. All right, so the next screen talks about what is a team. Now, this is the definition that Solution Tree uses for what is that team. It is a team is a group of people working interdependently to achieve a common goal for which members are mutually accountable. So interdependently means you have to have each other. You have to have your entire kindergarten team working together. You depend on one another to make everything happen. And your common goal, okay, which is growth and development of those students, and you're mutually accountable. You can't just say, oh, well, those are her kids, these are my kids. No, we are mutually accountable for every single one of those kindergartners. They're ours. Okay, so on the next screen, it talks about, well, what is the guiding coalition? What do they do? Well, they review data. They set goals and accountability for the goals, set curricular expectations. They assure that decisions align with the mission and vision, and we're going to talk more about what goes into your mission and vision. But everything, every decision that the guiding coalition makes goes back to that mission and vision to make sure that it is aligned. Your guiding coalition are your change agents. They are the ones that are going to go first. They're the ones that are looking for what needs to be changed for the better within the building. They're also keepers of the process and holding everyone accountable for what's going on in the building. If they see someone that's not following a process, then a conversation may have to be had to help guide them and to help teach them how to make sure that the process is being followed through. And they give a voice to all staff. And then on the next screen, oh no, it's the one after. Well, the one after. Go ahead and skip ahead one, and then we'll come back to that one. Okay, so who is on the guiding coalition? Who are those the keepers of the process and giving everyone a voice? There's a representative from every grade level or subject area, depending on what you are. But since you're kindergarten, you're not divided into subject areas. But part of your guiding coalition, you have a representative from the kindergarten team, from the first grade team, from the second grade team. You also have a representative from the SPED department, your pullouts or your specials, whatever you call your PE teacher and your music teacher. One of those is present on the team, someone from your intervention team, your counselor. Every department within your building has a representative on the guiding coalition. That way you're sure to get a viewpoint from everybody. So when you're having a conversation, the representative from the SPED team can say, oh, but we've got to make sure and keep this in mind. Your music teacher or whoever your pullout representative will say, well, based on the schedule that we have for this, da, 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 da. So it's nice to have a viewpoint and a perspective from everyone within the building. Okay, go ahead and go back to the other one. Okay, this is what a guiding coalition is not. We've talked about what a guiding coalition is. Let's make sure that we understand what a guiding coalition is not. It's not a time for planning parties and field trips. It is a time that we are focused on what's going to drive the academics for our students. It's also not a gripe session. You might have a little guy in your class that just really is pushing your buttons that day. But your guiding coalition time is not, just like your team time, whenever you meet with your kindergarten teachers, it's not a time to just sit and gripe. You have a focus. You have a lot to do. Your guiding coalition is not a clique. It's not just handpick certain people in the building that forms a clique. There is strategically ways that they can be chosen. It's also not a dictatorship of the building. We're all in this together. Like I said at the beginning, there is too much to do. There is too much work to be done. And nobody has time to dictate anybody else or be a micromanager or any of that. We are all in this together, and the guiding coalition just helps to guide that and helps to drive that bus. So there you go. There's your guiding coalition. Okay, I'm going to show you a sample agenda that we use at Spradling. Just so you can see, at the top, we have the date and the time that we're meeting. We also have our mission at the top, and the Spradling mission is every child, every day, whatever it takes to achieve a better future. And that is recited at the beginning of each meeting. That is recited by the person leading the meeting. We also have our vision posted. Okay, the reason we have these posted is every time we have a meeting, and it's the same thing in the team meetings also, in the grade level team meetings, they review the mission, they review their goals. That way they're always in front of us. They're always a reminder as to why are we here? What are we doing? Why are we spending this hour and a half in this meeting? Well, this is why, because every child, every day, whatever it takes to achieve a better future. If you notice down where we have the norms are very important when you are sitting down to have a meeting. And at first I thought, that seems kind of silly because, we're all adults, we're all professionals. Do we really need some of that? Well, yes, we do. I've sat in some meetings and been shocked by some of the things that I've seen and heard. So yeah, sometimes you do need norms. One of which is to start on time and end on time. Well, we did not start on time today. And again, I apologize for that, but there are technical difficulties, so I've already messed up a norm. We didn't start on time. But we are flexible. We want to be prepared. So if you know that you're having to present something to your team, if you were supposed to research something or have some data or have an example of an assessment, you want to be prepared because the rest of the school is counting on you to be prepared. We also, another one of our norms is to hold each other accountable. If you notice that someone is continuously 5 minutes late every meeting, just say something to them. Hey, remember our norms. We want to begin on time in a very polite, tactful manner. We want to remember that we are part of a team. We're all in this together. We all went into education because we want to support children. We want them to grow. We want them to learn. We're all on that same team. We want to stay on topic. We put squirrel in parentheses, and we've had to throw the word squirrel out a few times. If we start, here's our topic, and you know how it goes. And somebody will just holler out squirrel, and we bring it back. We want to respect each other. We want to use a growth mindset. Again, that kind of goes back to, it's not a gripe session. It's, okay, here's our issue. We're not going to sit and dwell and gripe about it. What are we going to do? How are we going to make it better? How are we going to get past this? So we do want to use the growth mindset. We also want to use technicate. Okay, we don't want somebody that's on their phone throughout the entire meeting, because they need to be present. They need to be right here, right now, for the work that we are currently on. You can also see on the agenda, we have who is present, and then we have our roles. Everyone has a role or a job to do during the meeting. We have the facilitators, so whoever is facilitating, whoever is leading the meeting that day. We have a recorder. We have all of our notes from the Guiding Coalition meeting that are entered in, that are in this agenda. They're typed in there. And everybody within our building, not just the Guiding Coalition, but everybody within the building has access to those notes. So everybody knows what was discussed, what was decided, what next steps are. And if anybody in the building has a comment or a question or a concern, they can then go to their grade level lead to ask that question or get something clarified. Notice we also have a timekeeper on there. That also kind of helps with the squirrel topics, or if a conversation goes beyond reasonable time, the timekeeper will call time to get us back on track. And you can see there that we put how much time is estimated to take up for that particular topic. If we discover that there is a conversation that needs further discussion, we can tack that on to the next meeting. We can make adjustments as needed. There have been times we've discussed a topic and we discover, we need another subcommittee to carry on that conversation to help make some decisions for that also. And you can see we have on there like a book study. So we would take a few minutes to discuss the book study or scheduling, or something as simple as the cafeteria changes. We made some procedure changes in the cafeteria. So we were discussing, how's it going? And because we do have representatives from each grade level, we know how it's going in each grade level. So that's just a sample of our agenda. All right, Miss Lexi, we can go on back to our PowerPoint, please, ma'am. Okay, let's talk about our mission, vision, and collective commitments. Now, these answer the why are we here, what are we doing, who are we doing it for, and how are we going to do it. So whenever we're looking at these, you can go ahead and go to the next screen. The tight elements, these are the things that are tight, that Solution Tree says we need to keep tight. We need to work in collaborative teams, collective responsibility for all students working independently to achieve a common goal. Sounds just like our definition of team. Teams implement a guaranteed and viable curriculum for all students. It doesn't matter which kindergarten teacher they have. Whichever classroom my child is in, they're going to get that same curriculum. Teams monitor student learning through ongoing common assessments. Those are your CFAs and your CSAs, and they are common Okay, one classroom doesn't do something different than the other when you do the same assessment to compare your data. You're going to reuse those results and data. Don't just let it sit there. You want to use it. After you've done all that work and taken the time to do it, you want to use that data. And you want to provide intervention and enrichment in a timely, directive, and diagnostic manner. So strategically setting up your intervention system.
And we started realizing that.
Okay, on the next screen, we have a chart that is found on page 39 of your Learning by Doing book. And this shows us that our mission tells us why we exist. Why do we do what we do? The vision is what? What must we become to accomplish our purpose? It gives us direction and some guidance. And our values, how are we going to behave? What actions are we going to take to achieve that our goal? Okay, on the next screen, we have how are we going to live our mission? Okay, when you are creating your mission, you want it to be a statement that explains why your school exists. What is your purpose? If you use the word all, that means all. Okay, all of the children in your building. And you want it to be short, sweet. You want it to be easily memorized. You want it to be easily referred to. So if you're having a conversation with a colleague, and you can refer back to that. Is this decision based on our mission? Okay. Your vision is also a statement. Go ahead and switch. Your vision is a statement of what your school must become to accomplish that mission. Okay. It helps give direction of where you're going. Now you want it to be realistic, but yet you want it to be hefty enough to really show what you stand for. Where are you going? What do you want to become, with yet a realistic view there? And then your collective commitments. These are the behaviors. What actions are we going to take? What behaviors are we going to have to do in order to bring that mission into fruition? If this is our goal, what steps are we going to take to get there? What are we going to do? And it needs to drive the behavior in everything you do, from every decision that you make. And it's got to go back and align with your mission and vision. All right. The next section is on your self-assessment surveys. Miss Alexi.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about the self-assessment surveys. So this is a quote from the Learning by Doing book, and it says, a key step in any effective improvement process is an honest assessment of the current reality, a diligent effort to determine the truth. So the very first thing you want to do before you get started is assess your current reality of your school, of your team, yourself, your teaching practices. So the what and the why. A self-assessment survey helps educators stop and reflect on their teaching practices, your goals, your team, your school as a whole. And the self-assessment survey, it's an important tool to the PLC process. It will help you determine your current reality and what next steps you need to take. So to assess your place on the PLC journey, you will first determine your current status. So you will use, sorry, let me turn on the
We have automatic lights in our building, and if they discover nobody has moved, they automatically shut off. So that's what happened to her.
Sorry. Okay, so the very first thing you'll do is determine your current status. So you will use, it's important for you to build shared knowledge regarding the current reality of your school. Then you will determine the next step. So for step number 1, you will use the surveys that are available to you, and I will share those in a little bit. Then you will determine the next step. So after you have taken the survey and you've assessed your reality, Then you will establish clarity on the current status of your school and make a plan. So step number 3 will be to take action using the information that you gathered from the assessment survey. You've established clarity. Now you're ready to turn that information into action. So here are some reproducibles that are available on the website that is provided to you in the Learning by Doing book, and that's the go.solutiontree.com PLC books. So this is where I got all of these resources from. So the very first one, there are several, there are multiple. I just picked a few to put on here so we can look at. So this very first one is the continuum for laying the foundation. So this survey will assess the current reality of your school's mission, vision, collective commitments, and goals. So they all have the similar outline of the survey. So it will have the indicator. Then you determine where you are with your mission. Are you pre-initiating, initiating, implementing it, developing, or sustaining? So you will go through and do that with the vision, collective commitments, and then your goals. And then the very last page is where you can make a plan. So your shared mission, what steps or activities must be initiated to create this condition in your school, who will be responsible for initiating or sustaining these steps or activities, what is a realistic timeline for each step or phase of the activity, and what will you use to assess the effectiveness of your initiative. So the survey is step part 1, and then the very last page of the surveys is part 2, where you plan what you plan on doing. So this one right here is what I just showed you. This is helpful when determining the next steps when you're ready to plan. This one right here assesses the effectiveness of the communication within the school building. So it's laid out the same way. You will go through, read the indicator, and select where you are with that indicator. And then the very last page again is for taking the next steps, planning for the next steps. This one assesses the current reality of your school's intervention and enrichments. Same format, it has indicator. You determine where you are with that indicator, and then the last page again is for next steps. This one assesses the current reality of your school's use of data. It's laid out the same way. And there are, if you go to that website that I mentioned, it has all of these on there available and much more. I just picked a few to go over. And then this last one is just assessing collaborative teams. Again, you just go through the indicator, determine where you are, and then the very last page is to help plan the next steps. So now on to SMART goals. We're going to talk about what SMART goals are and how to determine them. So SMART goals are the 4th pillar of the PLC foundation. So the 4th pillar is goals, and it asks the question, how will we know if all of this is making a difference? So first we're going to review what SMART is. So S is strategic and specific. Is this SMART goal specific enough? Does it align with the school's goals? Then for the M, it's measurable. How will the goal be measured? You want to make sure that your goal that you set is measurable. The A is for attainable. Is the goal realistic and attainable? Are you setting a realistic goal that can be attained that school year? The R is for results oriented, and you have to consider the past level performance and then use that to create your improvement goal. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then the T is for time bound. specify when the goal will be achieved, make sure that you are giving yourself enough time to achieve this goal. So here's how to create the SMART goals. So the very first thing you want to do is create clarity about SMART goals. You want to make sure that everyone understands and comes to an agreement about the meaning of SMART goals. If you don't have clarity, if everyone doesn't have that shared understanding, then it's not going to go as well as it can go. So make sure that the very first thing is to establish clarity about SMART goals. The next thing to do is to align the SMART goals. So each team must translate the school goals into a SMART goal that will drive the work of the team. So you have your school goal, and then you have your team goal, and you want to make sure that both of those are aligned. And last, you want to focus on results. SMART goals should focus on the evidence of what students will learn, not what teachers will do. So when you're setting a SMART goal as a team, you don't want to set a SMART goal that's focused on your team, saying we're going to use these strategies to help teach this skill. That's not what a SMART goal would be. This one, you want to focus on the learning outcomes, what you expect students to learn. So here, the Learning by Doing book had an example of a SMART goal worksheet. The third grade team did this SMART goal worksheet. There's not a kindergarten example, but I went ahead and linked the third grade example. So here is the worksheet. It's a SMART goal worksheet, and it has your school, team name, team leader, the team members of that team, and then they have the district goal, and then you have your school goal. So here you will be specific about your team SMART goals. So you have your current reality, and then your SMART goals. So your current reality year is, so let's say this year we're getting ready to set a SMART goal for our kindergarten students. Well, we want to look at what our reality was at the end of last year and use that information to make our SMART goal for this year. And then you will describe strategies and action steps, who is responsible for this SMART goal, the target date or timeline, and the evidence of effectiveness. And here it just goes down and it just shows you specifically what this team said they will do. And then here is an example of or not an example, it's just a blank. So they do have, again, on that website, they have a blank template that you can type on, or you can print off and write on it. So that is available on that website also. Okay, so then you have 3 different types of SMART goals. So you have your school SMART goal, your team SMART goal, and your unit SMART goal. So we're going to go over, I linked a few examples of what we did. So first we have our school SMART goal. So this was our reading SMART goal for kindergarten, or K2 actually. So we have, I changed it up a little bit. I changed it to yellow elementary and just chose different numbers. But so the school goal is by the end of the 2021-2022 academic year, students at yellow elementary and kindergarten, first and second grade will increase the amount of students in levels 3, 4, and 5 by 5% from 75 to 80% in reading, as demonstrated by iStation assessment data. So when you create a goal, you want to make sure that it meets the criteria of what a SMART goal is. Is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it results oriented? And is it timely? So when you set that goal, make sure you go through that criteria and make sure that it meets all of those components. So that was the school goal. And then kindergarten is going to have their own goal specifically to kindergarten. And this goal needs to be aligned to the overall school goal. So the kindergarten goal is by the end of the 2021-2022 academic year, students at yellow elementary and kindergarten will increase the amount of students in levels 3, 4, and 5 by 5% from 55% to 60% in reading as demonstrated by iStation assessment data. So this goal is aligned to the school goal. And then we have our unit goal. So the unit goal also needs to be aligned to your team goal and to your overall school goal. So this was just an example from one of our units. Your unit SMART goals are based on your essential standards, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. So we, in kindergarten, we have plenty of essential standards. I mean, the foundational skills are very essential. So here are some of our SMART goals within our units. We said by the end of the third quarter, 25 students or 60% will be able to recognize and name 40 or more upper and lowercase letters. Then we had another goal by the end of the third quarter, 22 students or 52% will be able to produce 14 or more letter sounds. And then we had by the end of the third quarter, 21 students or 50% will be able to decode 5 CVC words. And this is all, this also reflects our kindergarten report card that we have. So we aligned it to that as well to meet those requirements. So there we have some examples of the SMART goals. And on page 90 to 91, it talks about SMART goals in your Learning by Doing book. Then I also want to talk briefly about student SMART goals. So students can also set their SMART goals to and align them to your unit SMART goals, to your grade level SMART goal, and that will align to your overall grade band SMART goal. So this is just an example of what we did in kindergarten. We selected an essential skill, letter sounds, and we made a big display out in the hallway to show proficiency of students who have mastered that skill at that point in the year. So this is on the road to letter sound success. And then we had students color, make their own car. We laminated them, we put a picture on there, we wrote their name, and then we would place their car wherever they were with their letter sounds. And so once we assessed that skill again, we would go out to the hallway and they would get to move their car up, and we would celebrate them and clap for them. And they were all super excited to get to move their car up the road. So this is just one way for students to set SMART goals. You want to make sure that students understand what SMART goals are and explain that to them so that they fully understand why we're doing what we're doing. And then we also, I know before I moved down to kindergarten, they did little SMART goal cards where they would get a hole punch for every learning target that they mastered. So that's another, and there's plenty of ideas actually in this What About Us book. They have a lot of ideas on how different ways to set SMART goals with your students, specifically to K2. So that's a really great book also. And now it's time for a break. I'm not sure how long the break is.
Okay, does anybody, which at the very end of the day, we will have a time for questions. And so you're welcome to jot down any questions that you have. Does anybody have any questions up to this point that you need answered right now? Okay, all right.
A question.
Oh, yes. Oh, I think she's frozen.
I think I may have frozen.
Oh, there we go. I think we
Sorry, my internet said it was unstable all of a sudden. Will we be getting a link to the presentation that you guys are going over?
Probably so.
Okay.
But that's not for me to answer.
Okay. No, that's fine. I was just wondering. Okay.
after this presentation, so we're recording these, and then after this presentation, I will ask them to like share any of their handouts, manipulatives. It'll be their choice whether they choose to
That's
share
fine.
their presentation. But then we'll house those on the ADE DESE website and then on the ADE DESE ERZ website as well.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Well, great. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much for answering that.
I also have a question.
Okay.
With the Guiding Coalition, how often should they be meeting?
Great question. And you're right. And I've failed to answer that. I had planned on answering that. We, we, this past year, we met once a month.
Okay.
But we also like we have a couple of meetings already scheduled before school actually starts, where the Guiding Coalition is going ahead and meeting prior to the school year starting to help, make some decisions ahead of time before the school year even starts. Once the school year gets going, this past year we did once a month. There were times that we were like, oh, we need to meet more often.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal for this year is every 2 weeks, because
Okay.
we discovered there was just a lot to discuss, a lot to review and go over, that once a month just really wasn't enough time in order for us to keep everything in line, to keep everything going as it needed to be, and have time, because remember, timely is part of it. And so if you wait a whole month, the timely piece kind of gets messed up a little bit. So our goal is to meet every 2 weeks this year.
Mm-hmm.
But last year we did do once a month, and then additional as needed. But like I said, we also, at the beginning of the year, when so many things are being like scheduling and procedures and other stuff going on to get into place, the beginning of the year, they meet a little bit more often. So great question. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we take a 15-minute break? Okay, if you do come up with any other questions as each section is presented, just jot it down, and at the end of our day, we will have a time to answer some more questions for you, because we want to make sure that you leave today with tools in your tool belt and some resources to help you through all this. Okay, it is 9:26. We're going to take a 15-minute break, so we'll see you in just a few minutes. All right, welcome back, everybody. You can start turning on your screens again. Okay, this next section, we're going to look at essential standards. And I know that can be very overwhelming when you have this massive list of things to cover. So we're going to look at essential standards, targets, and then also a unit of study before our lunch break. So everybody get your pen and paper ready for some good stuff. All right, take it over, ladies.
Okay, are we there? We're going to share our screen.
Oh, we're trying. Where is the PowerPoint?
Where'd it go? I didn't have it pulled up. Oh, here. Okay. And then, wait, no. Wait, where is it? Sorry, that's what I was saying.
Can you just go over to your Google Slides?
No, that's what we're trying to.
I'll move this down. No. Is it going to be able to move the slides?
I'll let you go right now.
If you just go back up there to the 9 little dots. Oh, you found it. Okay. There it is.
Okay, are we there?
Yes.
Do they see the whole that too? Or this is how we make it full screen?
Is there a way to make it full screen?
I'll present.
There we go. All right.
Yay, see teamwork.
Woo, you got it.
Okay, on essential standards, because we have so many standards that our district, requires us to teach, it was kind of a relief when our principal came to us and said in the PLC process, you can just choose the essential standards that are the most important, and it's not that you're not going to teach all of the other standards. You're going to expose them to all of them, but you're going to really dive deep into the ones that you feel are the most important, the most essential. And we pick 5 from literacy, and then we'll pick 5 from math. And choosing those essential standards, we want to differentiate the standards that are nice to know from those that all students need to know. And we will do this also by considering in our vertical alignment what they need to know to be successful in the next grade level, being first grade. So we'll visit with our colleagues in the next grade level and establish to help pick our essential standards that we want to really focus on. Also, in prioritizing the standards, and I'm getting this off of out of page 114, 115 on learning by doing. Developing a guaranteed and viable curriculum requires prioritization of these standards and a recognition of the fact that while all standards are important, some standards are more important than others. And that's where we are able to minimize down and just select those 5 essential standards. On our next screen, essential standards are what teachers will spend the majority of instructional time teaching. They are what teachers will assess, what teachers will have data-driven discussion about. That data we take to our team meetings, and then we decide which direction to go next, because we all know that assessment drives instruction. And the last is what teachers will intervene on enrichment or remediation, because we always focus on the intervention for the students that didn't master the skill, but we don't want to forget about the ones that have mastered and how we can challenge them and provide some enrichment for those students. Next screen. We want to prioritize the standards. So we want to make sure that the standard has endurance. That means are students expected to retain the knowledge and the skill beyond the unit and the course? We want them to be able to hold on to that and once they've mastered it and take it to the next level. Does the standard have leverage? That means will the student be able to apply the standard in more than one subject area? So we're going to do a lot of integration, and that's how we select those essential standards to get more bang for our buck. The next one, does the standard prepare students for success at the next level? So that means, has the standard been identified as an essential prerequisite skill in the next course or grade level, which I touched base on already. When we visit with those first grade teachers, we want to get more bang for our buck again. We like that phrase because since we're only choosing, say, 5 standards, we want to get the most out of them. And the next is, will the standard prepare students for success on high stakes external exams? And in kindergarten, of course, we do iStation as our state exam. So we want to make sure that the concept or the skill that the students are most likely to encounter. We're in the dark again. We're going to get our lights back on. So they most likely to encounter on state exam, the iStation. So we also must engage in vertical articulation with our colleagues above and below the course grade level. So we do have a preschool in our building. And so this year we're going to be adding our preschool in our,
They'll be in our essential.
essential skills list, which I'm going to show you later on a different slide. So we work closely with the first grade teachers, and then we'll be able to pull from the preschool teachers in our building. Our next one. A quick tip, when considering whether to select one similar standard over another, you need to determine which one is the more comprehensive or rigorous one, not the one that is more foundational. So what we want to, what content do we currently teach that we can eliminate from the curriculum because it is not essential? That's the ones where you're just picking and choosing the ones that you will get the most out of, the ones that the students need to know, not just nice to know. Okay. And on our next one, this is what our school has created. We have a librarian, Steve Marion, who's awesome. He created this BIC site, BIC, and it stands for Bauman Information Center. And we have all the teachers in the building have access to the site. And on this particular tab is our essential skills, and it shows unit 3. On this one, we have 4 units. So we connect those to our 4 quarters of school. So unit 1 is going to be the first quarter. Unit 2 will be the second quarter, and so on. I know some grade levels will have like 6 units. The kindergarten uses 4 units. These are our essential standards, and you can see this is what I was talking about. Here's our kindergarten essential skills, and over to the right is the first grade, and it goes on. Now, what we're going to do this year is we would like to include preschool, open up another column so preschool can have their standards in there, and we'll be able to collaborate with those teachers and let them know what we really need them to know coming into first grade. And that should help. This just gives us an at a glance what our skills are. And I'm going to show you when I open it up. Same thing, only you'll see the live piece. There. Okay, so this one in kindergarten for math, we highlighted the count to 25 by ones. The standard adds the counting by fives and by tens, but that is in a different unit that will have that.
We highlight to show what we're really focusing.
Yeah, we highlight to show what the focus is in that standard.
So first grade looks back at it, they can tell.
Yeah, so the first grade teachers can see what it is we're working on. And like I said, we do collaborate with them to make sure we're getting what they need to know to go into first grade. So this just, you can see there's 27 pages. We highlighted again here, recognize and name uppercase and lowercase letters, how many they need to know for that quarter. So we've moved into literacy here. Let's see. See, in math, the first quarter of kindergarten, we're transitioning in how to be a kindergartner and social skills and just, like I said, being in kindergarten. So there's not a lot of skills that we have to teach in the first quarter, but it does catch up as the year goes on.
We're also very fluid with all of our kids, and that doesn't mean just our kindergarten kids, but a fourth grade teacher can look at all of our essential standards here and go, you know what, I have a student that is falling short in maybe some first grade skills or some kindergarten skills, and they can either ask for our assistance to help, or sometimes we even move them and put them in some of our groups as special helpers so that they're just in the room absorbing things, absorbing that skill that they might need some extra help on. Or if we have a child that is functioning above our standards, we can sort of see where they fall as well to give more enrichments. So the essential standards at a glance with everybody is a wonderful tool.
Yeah, everyone can see what everyone is doing before them or, moving them into. So it's very, very helpful. Yes. That is all. Yeah. So, oops, I guess I pushed it into your next one.
If you want, you can stop sharing and then I'll share my screen. That way you don't have to worry about clicking through mine.
Yeah, okay.
Stop share. Red.
We're learning.
Thank you. Okay, so now we are moving on to unpacking standards and creating learning targets. So this is an important step in the process to make sure that everyone in your team understands the standards that you selected as essential. The unpacking process is very helpful so that everyone fully understands what the standard is asking you to teach students and what skills they should be able to master from that standard. So the very first thing, why unpack standards? So when you unpack standards, it ensures that you provide all students with the guaranteed and viable curriculum. So guaranteed means that you are giving students access to the same essential learning outcomes regardless of who is teaching. So no matter where that student is placed and what kindergarten classroom, they will be receiving the same essential learning as the teacher next door. And then viable, can it be taught in the time allotted? Do you have time to teach it? And do students have time to learn it? So then we get into the unpacking process. So there are a few steps, and then I'm going to go over the steps, and then I'll walk you through some examples. So step 1 is to identify all of the verbs in the standard. Once you ask yourself, what should students be able to do? You can either underline the verbs or highlight the verbs. Either one works. Step 2 is identify all of the nouns or noun phrases. So which words indicate the concepts that students should know. Again, if you choose to underline the verbs, then you can highlight the nouns or vice versa. Step 3 is identify any other important context. So usually we put that in brackets, and context refers to the type of text students will read, types of problems to be solved, or any other situational information. So after you have looked into the standard, selected the nouns, verbs, the context, then you are ready to create your learning targets. And your learning targets, you want to make them into I can statements. That way they are student friendly and the students understand what skills they are trying to master. Step 5 is to determine the DOK levels for each learning target that you have created. And then step 6, it should say step 6, is determine what proficiency looks like for that standard. So how will you know when students have mastered that standard? So now we are going to look at some examples. So I have put a math standard that we unpacked and a reading standard that we unpacked. So one of our, again, you will only unpack these standards that you selected as essential. You will not unpack every single standard. So this very first standard that we selected as essential was count to 100 by 1s, 5s, and by 10s. And then we said that a learning target standard would be count forward beginning from a given number within the known sequences. So here we highlighted the verbs and we underlined the nouns. So the very first thing is we highlighted count. That's a verb. They need to be able to do that. And then the nouns by 1s, 5s, and by 10s. We did the same thing with the learning target standard. And then down here, we have listed all of the nouns, what students need to know. We listed the verbs, what skills students need to be able to do, and then the DOK level overall for the standard. And then we went into, so in Fort Smith, we have our report card and it's by quarters. And so we broke this standard down into learning targets by quarter because the report card assesses differently at every quarter for counting. So overall, our learning targets were, I can count to 100 by 1s. That's the goal by the end of the school year. I can count to 100 by 10s, and I can count forward by 1s from any given number up to 100. So our first quarter learning targets were, we broke this down kind of into a progression. The end goal by the end of first quarter was for students to be able to count to 25. So first we just made sure that they could count to 5. Then we went up to 10, 15, 20, and by the end of the quarter, they needed to be able to count to 25. For quarter 2 learning targets, it was I can count to 50. Then quarter 3 is counting to 75. And then they also had to count to 100 by 10s. And then fourth quarter, they had to count to 100 by 1s and then also count forward by any given number up to 100. So then we listed our DOK levels next to each learning target. And then down here, we have the learning progression, what mastery looks like and what proficiency looks like. So you determine that with your team. You discuss it, what what do you expect students to be able to do when they're proficient, when they have mastered it. And then down here, we just list our vocabulary, any vocabulary that we want to make sure that students learn for this standard, we list it there. So that was an example of a unpacked math standard, and now we're going to look at a unpacked reading standard. So this standard is recognize and name all upper and lowercase letters of the alphabet. Again, you start off by highlighting the nouns or underlining the nouns and then identifying the verbs. And then this template is also was provided to us. And then I'll show you a resource that's available for you to use. Or you can create it as long as you have all of these pieces on there. So then we list our nouns, our verbs, what students should be able to do, the DOK level, and then again, we broke it down by quarters because that's how our report card assesses. So the very first one is, first quarter is I can recognize and name 13 upper and lowercase letters. So they just need to know 13. By second quarter, it's the same thing, but now it increases to 26. Third quarter, it increases to 40. And then fourth quarter, they need to know all upper and lowercase letters. We went through and listed the DOK level. Then we discussed what does mastery of the standard look like and what does proficiency of the standard look like. And then down here, we listed our vocabulary that we felt students needed to know for this standard. And then here's the template that I talked about. This is also on that website that I referenced earlier. This is exactly what we had. We just added the vocabulary section, and then so this is on there. You can print that off and use that. And then a resource, a really good resource when unpacking standards is this wiki teacher resource. So I'll show you what that looks like. This is very helpful if you are stuck on a standard. It has all of these standards unpacked for you. I would use it after you have unpacked your standard, or if you're really stuck, I wouldn't just copy everything that's on here. So what you do is you will go up here where it says Unwrap Standards, and then you can choose. So I'm going to select K-Math. And then let's say I want to do the KCCA one, count to 100 by ones and by tens. You select that standard, and then it has learning targets that you can use or that you can reference. It has some vocabulary for this standard. It has essential questions related to the standard. It has the alignment, the horizontal alignment, the vertical alignment standards. It has ELL considerations for this standard, any additional information, textbook or instructional resources that it suggests, teaching suggestions, assessments, any additional information, professional learning opportunities, but mainly, I mean, the learning targets, vocab, and then is usually what we'll reference if we are stuck on a standard, but it has all of the standards for math and for ELA, same for every grade level. So this is a very helpful resource to use when you are unpacking your standards. And that's all for me.
What a great resource, that wiki teacher. That's a great resource. Does anybody have any questions about the essential standards, targets, anything so far? It definitely takes a lot of teamwork to work with your team and very deep discussions as to, you know, well, I think this one's essential. I think this one's essential. So I've sat in on some very detailed conversations in regards to that. So any questions about essential standards or targets? Okay, then let's go on to unit of study.
Do you want me to stop sharing so you can share your screen? Okay.
Let's catch back up. All right, unit of study. So now we have all of our essential skills. We have all of our SMART goals. It's like, what do you do now? And to me, this is the most exciting part when you're putting it all together, okay? We need to develop and map our lessons. This is what I think is so exciting. We want to cluster our standards within each of the content strands. And that just basically means that we want to group our standards, how we can teach them together. We want to incorporate things. We want to determine if multiple standards should be taught together and simultaneously. We want to begin by forming some initial clusters of common standards that connect and may help students build deeper conceptual understanding within a content strand. When we identify strands that connect across different strands, we're integrating. When we're doing our units, we're trying to integrate as much as possible. Everybody is talking about how, we don't have enough time and how this is going to take more time. Well, if we start integrating our standards more, that helps with your time frame. We're going to look for how you might be able to connect need to know essential standards across strands in more than one unit of study, so students have multiple opportunities to learn these essential standards throughout the day and throughout the year. In kindergarten, especially when we are teaching a standard, we don't usually drop it. If we are teaching, for instance, using a capital letter at the beginning of a sentence, once a child has mastered that, or we've introduced it and, taught it and they've mastered it, we don't ever stop looking for that. We're always continually looking for these standards where they're growing and keeping the standards going together. We're teaching them together, spiraling them together. Forms of units of study. That's just our strong unit of study has a balance of standards that require both higher and lower levels of cognitive demand. Each of these units of study should contain several essential standards, and the essential standard should spiral throughout your other curriculum. We're looking at all grade level standards, essential and non-essential. And like we've said before, just because we choose essential standards, that doesn't mean that we're not constantly teaching our other standards. Throughout the year, we cover every standard in kindergarten, the state of Arkansas has. We just may not concentrate as much on if it's not essential. We want mastery of learning for those essential standards. Our order units of study. That's when we're considered starting the year with units that include students will be development ready for. We want to have some of their background knowledge. With like kindergarten, a lot of times we start with colors or apples, things that we know that they're familiar with, so it gains their interest. We want our units of study to build on one another throughout the year. When we determine our duration of each unit of study, we start with a planner. I happen to see mine. We use a handy dandy planner from Horace Mann. And we start, it's empty, and we start laying out where we want to go. What units do we want to cover? What standards? We have those essential standards, so we start putting them together. We decide, at the beginning, we usually are deciding, starting from August moving forward. Then about Christmas time, we actually stop and we start working from the back and the end and go work backwards. We want to know what we want to have covered by the end of the year. And that way we have those essential standards covered. And year by year, it changes. You know, we might spend 3 weeks on a standard one year, and we may spend a month on it the next year. You know, you have to go by what your little kiddos need. So keep in mind that it changes. We also, we're very fortunate that school districts often provide a year-long curriculum outlines and various other instructional tools to support our teachers. Well, these can be extremely helpful, but we also have to keep in mind that, you know, we're the teacher and we know our students and we know what they need best. So sometimes that curriculum map that you may have, even though it said spend 3 weeks on a skill, you may know, you know, I think I can teach this one a little bit faster and spend more time on an essential skill that they absolutely need to know. So you always have to keep that in mind, that you know, you are the professional and you know what your kids need. This is, once again, on our BIC site that we use at Ballman. It's a wonderful resource. We can see all of our units at a glance. And like it's been said before, in Fort Smith, we do use 4 units because we have a standards-based report card. We have our unit 1 is our first quarter, unit 2, second quarter, and so on. I'm going to pull up an example of ours. All right, so we have in our unit 1, we know that we're going to have 9 weeks to cover this. And we have listed our essential standards. We put our math and our writing, math and our writing and our literacy together. So we can see at a glance what we're teaching. We've talked about how to come up with your essential standards. We just have ours listed. Right. We also have our learning progression. We can see what, for this quarter, what they need to know in first grade and what they need to know in preschool. We have our preschool down here at the bottom. This happens to be math. In preschool, they should have come to us with counting objects that they can say a number in a standard, and they should also recognize that the last number name said and tells the number of objects counted. So it gives us a good idea where we need to be. On our unit plans, we also keep all of our SMART goals, our targets. Here's our learning targets for reading, our I can statements with prompting and support, identify character settings and major events. Our learning targets are I can identify characters in a story. I can identify settings in a story. I can identify major events in a story. And we have a little over here for RC, that's just our little tag that says this is on our report card. That's the skill that we're assessing. We keep everything. We have our pre-assessments that we have listed, our different curriculum maps. Like I said, here's all of our learning targets. We can see at a glance our entire unit. Our SMART goals are highlighted. How many of at the end of the quarter, we had 80% of our learners were able to recognize 13 or more letters. So on.
And this is what do you call it?
Working document. Okay, I'm going to share.
You want to close this one?
Yes.
I think if you bring that box down, unit 1 right here. Click on
Okay.
X. Yeah.
I'm going to show you an example In kindergarten, we love fun units. We love to engage our learners. This is how we're going to motivate them. We want them to be excited about learning. And I'm going to scroll down. Now, this is going to be about October. You can see our standards again, things that they need to know below grade level. Here are our preschool standards that they need. Here are our first grade standards that we're really focusing on. And when we have our team meetings, these are the standards. Like our first grade teachers are saying, look, our kids are having trouble with this skill, and that's why we target it right here. Or our preschool teachers, you know, they talk to us about their successes and what they are, you know, what they are teaching. If we have, when we're talking with our preschool teachers, you know, we might have said, you know, look, we were struggling with learners recognizing the hexagon. And so the preschool teacher said, hey, you know, we'll just start picking that hexagon up. So that's where we're getting that data. But I want to show you some of our lesson plans. Down. This is just a basic outline that we keep to give us an idea of where we're going. When we're doing our planning and our long-term planning, you know, we start and we think, okay, how many weeks do we have in October, and what kind of things do we want to, you know, cover? We always cover pumpkins. We have a large pumpkin unit, and so we'll have poems that talk about pumpkins. We'll work with our math, we'll work with our writing, our science and our social studies. Everything is going to be geared around that pumpkin. So it's not like it's taking more time out of our day. We, like even with our Haggerty lessons, you know, rhyming, we're going to come up with pumpkin words to rhyme with our visualizing and verbalizing. We're going to think of a pumpkin, you know, what does a pumpkin look like? You know, we're going to use all those structure words just geared around a pumpkin. Read lots of stories about pumpkins. Our activities and stations will be about pumpkins. We're integrating everything that we possibly can. That way you're getting more bang for your buck with those essential standards. Even though, you know, and a standard might be counting, we're going to count pumpkins. We're going to listen to the beginning sound in the pumpkin. We're going to, in our writing, we're going to count how many words we have. I mean, we're just going to integrate everything as much as possible. And the kids love it. It makes engaging lessons. Like I said, this is just some of our lesson plans. We talk about in our team meetings, we come up with these plans weekly. Right. And we do at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of each quarter, really, we sit down and discover our units. We decide how many weeks we want to spend on each one of them. And sometimes it changes. And especially like at the end of the year, we start going back and thinking, okay, well, we need to rework this unit. It didn't work very well there. Let's move it a couple of weeks later because the kids need more writing skills, or they need a different strand. Right. Everything depends on the kiddos that you have. But having a document where you can have everything at a glance is very helpful.
And unit work is so good because it doesn't integrate everything. A lot of projects they don't unit.
Right. In kindergarten, we are used to teaching in units. You know, we want to engage those kids. And so this is a different skill if you're coming from a higher grade, you know, that I know that you may not be used to reading a story about
pumpkins and having your math activity about pumpkins. This is where we're changing our mindset that, you know, we're not just going through starting at page 1 in a math book and going all the way through.
And we also
the
discuss it
second
with
aloud.
the oral teachers, you know,
Yeah.
and then they can, like the art teacher can make her artwork about pumpkins.
Right. We collaborate with everybody. Our team, we have our speech pathologist on our team. We have the counselor on our team. We have literacy facilitators on our team. So everyone is working with our same units, whatever we're doing. The art teacher's going to be doing it. The PE teachers will do it. If we give them our unit plans, and so they'll know, hey, they're doing pumpkins and they're counting to 75. And so during PE, they will come up with activities, you know, where they're hopping on pumpkins and counting at the same time. So they reinforce our skills all the time as well.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions? Our people.
I do. Do you have like a specific curriculum, or is yours more standards based?
We are standards based.
Okay.
Now we
That's
have,
different than the district I'm in.
oh, okay. Now we do have, you know, different curriculum like, you know, Hegarty, and Rise, and we have Scene Stars that we do incorporate, but we use all of that together.
Those are all resources.
Yeah, how our curriculum is set up, it's like daily. So like we do use wit and wisdom and illustrative mathematics. So it's like daily, like scheduled like things. So I didn't know like if you all had something like that, or if you get to choose like, and it sounds like you get to choose a lot of what you
We do. We are very fortunate that we get to choose what works best for our students.
Yes, we're given more of like a map of the things we're supposed to teach in a certain amount of time in the Little Rock School District. We get a curriculum map and it says you have 9 weeks to teach these set of skills, basically is what it is. And we're kind of given, these are the resources you're supposed to use. You can add stuff, but this is what you're directed to use. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. And we have that too. And I think one of the things that we have to really understand is that we're the educator. You know your kiddos. And even though you have that curriculum map, you have to do what's best for your kids. You know, the curriculum map sometimes tells you you need to leave a standard and, you know, move on to another one. Well, if those kiddos still are not mastering it, then we're not going to leave it. You know, we are going to put it in intervention. We're going to put it in our swarm time. We're going to, you know, rally around it. But just because my curriculum guide says I need to be on this standard, on this page in math and this page in reading, I'm going to do what's best for my kiddos.
Yeah, we're
And
very
when we've questioned that with different like higher up people, they said, don't worry about it. It will circle back around. That's what we keep getting told. I don't like that, but you know, as the I guess the lower rung of the ladder, I do what I'm told.
Right, exactly. And I completely understand that. I think that's where the mindset of we have to figure out those essential standards, and we have to make a plan for those, and we need to get our administration to understand those essential standards and why they're so important.
And I think once you do that, and what we noticed was once they see the results of the work and how well the kids are doing, they're like, okay, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it, you know. So that helps a lot, because we've been very fortunate in the last 7 years that we had our principal that had already had experience with the PLC process. So when she brought it to us and we started going to the meetings and all of the workshops, seminars, we brought it back into the building. And once we could prove that it worked by picking those essential standards and integrating it in a unit of study, they were impressed in kindergarten. And I know our kindergarten classes were shining. And so what we got back was keep doing it.
What
It's
you're doing,
working.
yeah. And we are in a poverty school. I mean, we do not have kids that have come back, that come with a lot of background knowledge. They are, I mean, we're highly mobile and poverty. So it works. And I know when we started this process, we thought, oh my goodness, how in the world are we ever going to get the time to do all this? Because we were like you, we're like, we have all of this reading curriculum and we've got to have these guided reading groups and we need to have this and we need to have that. And how are we going to make the time? And I thought, and especially when you're telling us, well, now I need another 30 minutes a day for our swarm groups, and I was like, oh, there is no way. And that's when we thought, you've got to incorporate everything and you've got to, and I'm a big science person. So, I mean, I've learned you put that science experiment in with that reading and you read that story and you write about that. My writing is not an isolated skill. It's going to be whatever our unit of study is that day.
Yeah, it was kind of scary at first to think, what, we're not going to teach all of the standards, what? But then once we put it to work and we did get, we picked and we discussed what were the essential standards, because there's so many to choose from, but what are the ones that we've noticed in the past that gave the kids problems? So we were, we knew ahead of time where kids usually struggle. So we're going to pick that standard to focus on, and we may have to change it from year to year because our group of kids coming in, they change. But we're always working skill by skill, student by student. And we can, when we do have our team meetings, we bring our data to the table and we can tell you exactly what, you give us the name of one of the kids in our class, we can tell you exactly what they need and where they're at. And then we can group them. And I know we'll talk about that part later, but
even in our district, this wasn't an overnight thing. I mean, it took our district time, and we still are in the process of adjusting some of our essential skills to, the district will send us assessments and we're like, these aren't aligned with our essential skills, but we're working there. We're getting there. So there are some things that we are told that we will do, and we do it, but the bottom line is we want to introduce all of our skills, but we want to concentrate mastery on those essential skills that, and, we look at sometimes and think, you can be a productive citizen, even if you do not recognize the hexagon shape. There are things that you can just let go. If I want to make sure, instead of spending 3 weeks on, shapes, if my kids are struggling with that hexagon and I still have some kids that are working on addition, I'm thinking, Roy, that addition is a little bit more important than taking on that hexagon. Not that I'm going to forget that hexagon. I'm going to put it up around the room and we're going to talk about it at different times and point it out, but I'm going to get as much bang for my buck with those essential standards. And when we finally realized, because that's a mindset that you have to think yourself, because I'm like, oh no, I've got to cover all 64 of these standards. And I have a little checkbook that I check everything off, how many times I've introduced it, how many times we've, revisited it. I'm very compulsive about that. And so having just those limited standards was a big thing for me. I mean, it was a hard thing, but it works. It like I said, our scores are great. When our kids transfer out and go throughout the district, they know they came from Ballman. So we're proud of that.
Now, I know a lot of the things that they have been sharing, it is overwhelming. If you personally or your building doesn't have some of these setups, it does look very overwhelming, and it is time consuming in the beginning, but think of it as time invested that it will make everything else go smoother, and a much smoother process once you get all of that established. So don't get overwhelmed. And remember, Johnny and Karen have been at this for several years. So what they presented to you has been a work in progress over several years worth of work. So just, like we've heard before, just one bite of that elephant at a time, because it is a big elephant. But just take one bite at a time, do one step at a time. You don't have to do math and literacy in the same year. You can do math one year and then build your literacy the next year. So don't feel like you have to have all of this done right now. So we are doing very well on time today. So let's go ahead, if the audience is okay, I think we need to go ahead and do one more section on the assessments before we break for lunch, and then everybody can have a lunch break, and then we'll come back to finish up our day. So Johnny and Karen, are you ready for your assessments session?
Yes.
Can we go ahead? Okay, well then let's go ahead and let's focus on assessments. And as we know, on those 4 critical questions that we talked about in the beginning, we want to have those common assessments. And then what are we going to do if the students don't have it yet? And what are we going to do with that information if they do have it? But coming up with those assessments, it's a big deal, because it does determine where you place your kids, what information you have, the data, and so much of this is data driven. And so these assessments are definitely a vital piece of this puzzle. All right, ladies, thank you.
Continue. All right. Well, like we said, it's important to remember that teams, we just don't want to be giving assessments just to be giving them, especially formative assessments, just to come up with a score. They are a teaching tool, and we want to answer the important question: how do we know if our students have learned? And this data tells our team if our students have learned. Rick DeFore, the very first time we went to a PLC meeting, we were excited because we were going to get to meet him, and he had to do a virtual because he had become sick. So he just sent a virtual little message. But when you go to a meeting and you see the respect that he has and from all the other presenters, I mean, he has an energy about him that is just absolutely amazing. So I want to share what he has to say about assessments. This short little video. This is on Global PD. This is a wonderful,
I highly recommend the Global PD. If you have not signed up for that, that is definitely a resource that would come in handy. There are video clips, there are articles. You can look information up by topic, by author. It's a great resource.
Yes. Sorry, I can't multitask. Thanks for that. There we go.
Want to talk about is common formative assessments. What do we mean by that? A lot of confusion over those terms. Well, a common assessment is just what it sounds like. Students who are in the same curriculum or are expected to acquire the same knowledge and skills, when it comes time to assess those knowledge and skills, we will use the same assessment. So if it's a paper and pencil test, it will be the same test. If it's a performance-based assessment, we'll assess the same performance and use a common rubric and establish iterated reliability as we use the rubric. But what do we mean by formative assessment? There's a term that's a lot of confusion. Here's some of the ways that different people have answered it. Rick Stiggins says, a formative assessment is an assessment for learning. It's part of the teaching and learning process. A summative assessment is an assessment of learning. Did they learn it by the deadline? Yes or no, pass or fail? Doug Rees has a different analogy. He says a formative assessment is to a summative assessment what a physical examination is to an autopsy. Can you learn a lot from autopsies? Absolutely. I watch CSI. And they've learned some pretty valuable things in those autopsies. But what I've noticed is that the autopsy never benefits whom? The dead guy's still dead. Doesn't help him. So what Reese is saying is you can wait till the end of the year to find out why your kids died on those high stakes tests. Or you could be taking their temperature all throughout the year. Oh, in September, this kid has a fever. We prescribe an antidote so he doesn't die. That would make it formative. But here's my favorite way of looking at this. Summative assessment gives students a chance to prove what they have learned, past tense. Whereas a formative assessment gives the student a chance to improve upon his or her learning. Okay? Now let's apply that. When your state gives its end of year state test, would you say that tends to be more formative or summative? Clearly summative. Did they learn it by the deadline, proficient or not, right? How about you're watching a masterful teacher in the classroom, and as she's teaching, she's checking for understanding almost minute by minute. She's got all these strategies, right? She's randomly directing questions to kids. She's saying, write this answer down. I'm going to come around and see what you've written. She's got signals, kids, working groups. When your group has it, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. We don't get it. Red light, green light, exit slips. Summative or formative? Really good formative assessment. And we want that going on in the classroom every single day. How about a team of teachers? They come together at the beginning of the school year. They agree in this first unit, we're going to teach two very important skills. And they write the assessment that they're going to use to assess whether or not the kids get those skills. They've given themselves 3 weeks to teach the unit. And at the end of the unit, they give the kids that assessment. Is that assessment summative or formative? Turn to the person next to you. Is it a summative or formative assessment? Quick vote. We'll see how it happens here and in our off sites, in our hybrids. How many of you think it is a summative assessment that the team gives at the end of the year? How many of you think it's a formative assessment? I don't know what's happening at the hybrids, but here in San Antonio, most people aren't thinking. We had about 20 hands go up out of 1,600 people. And you know what? You're right. Because the real answer to that question, is it formative or summative, is what? It depends, right? Does it depend on what's on the test? No. What does it depend on? How you use it. It's what happens after they take the test that will determine whether that or not that assessment is formative or summative. Now, I didn't understand that when I was a teacher, and every test I ever gave was a summative test. I'd give them a test, I'd grade it, the grade would go in the book, we'd move on. Did you learn it by the deadline? That's not how teachers at Stevenson High School do it. Here's what they do. They come together, they agree on what they want the kids to learn, they write the test before they start teaching the unit. Each of them teaches the unit using the strategies they think works best for them. The day of the assessment comes, they all stop and they give the assessment. Now, what do they do with it? First, they use it to identify who are the kids who didn't get it. Right? I've got 8 in my second hour class that bombed this algebra test. When I studied a little more closely, 7 of the 8 did okay on one of the skills we taught, but they really bombed the second skill. Great. That's what I needed to know. Now what do? We require those kids to keep working and keep learning because we said these are essential skills, not nice to know skills. And because they're essential, we say, kids, you don't have it yet, but we're going to require you to keep working and keep learning. So when do we provide this extra time and support for student learning? Should we take them out of their algebra class to tutor them in algebra? What do you think? No, that would be stupid. They'll miss new direct instruction in algebra. Of course you don't take them out of algebra to tutor them in algebra. You take them out of English to tutor them in algebra. No, then they'll miss new direct instruction in English. So what do? We specifically create a schedule that gives us access to the kids who need us most. And we can intervene and support these kids in a way that never deprives them of new direct instruction. Now, when they go to this place for support, in our case, one of the places was a tutoring center, we don't just send them down and say he's failing algebra. We say these 7 kids need help with this skill. It's very diagnostic and precise. And the tutors work with those kids. And let's say after a week of intensive tutoring, the tutors say, they've got it. Give them another chance. So what would we do then? We give them another opportunity to demonstrate that they've learned. We give them Form B of the assessment on the same skills. And now they get a C on the test. So what should that student's grade be? When he took the test after 3 weeks, he got an F. After 4 weeks, he got a C. What should his grade be? Should be C, because we say we want all kids to what? Learn. Do any of your mission statements say we want all kids to learn fast in the first time we teach them? No, they don't say that. We say we want them all to learn. If all kids are going to learn, some will probably need more time. Now, I know that many of you are thinking, well, if I did that, I might have some kid who got a C on the test, wasn't happy with the C, and comes to me and says, well, can I put in some extra work? Give me some extra assignments. Let me work through some extra problems. And once I show that to you, would you give me another opportunity to show you I've learned this at a deeper, richer level? What would we say to those kids? Hell no. Do you realize how inconvenient that would be for me? I'd have to be erasing grades in my grade book, changing things. Come on, a C's a good grade. Most of us are C people, kid. Live with it. No, I mean, if we said we want to help all kids achieve at high levels, of course we would be giving kids additional opportunities to demonstrate that they've learned. But there's one more thing that we absolutely must do if this is truly going to be a formative assessment. It's not just to identify the kids who need help. It's also how can it inform us? Who on our team needs help? Who on our team has great strengths that the rest of us can learn from? And is there an area where nobody on the team got great results? That's what we mean by formative assessment. And the evidence for doing this is overwhelming. You see some of the research on page 174 and on page 175. So we're going to come back to the importance of common formative assessments in just a bit. Another term
I just love to listen to him. And I learn so much, even each time when I watch these videos. And we use a lot of these videos in our team meetings as well. If we're struggling with a different area, we can pull up something on Global PD and revisit different sections. But like we talked, a summative assessment is an assessment of learning, okay? It's everything that we've learned. A formative assessment is assessment for learning. That's during the process. You know, what are we looking for? We're looking for the data in that formative assessment. And we also have to remember that when we come to our team meetings and we're looking at all this data, that sometimes it's hard because you might feel disappointed because one teacher may have, you know, more students that mastered the skill and another teacher didn't. This is never a time to critique teaching or to point out we don't want to point out teachers that maybe aren't, how do I say it? It's never a reflection on the teacher. We're always just looking at that learning, what our kids are learning. So we have to think about that when we're talking about our assessments. We want to learn from each other. If, for instance, in our team meeting, we take all of our papers, we lay them all out, and we grade them together. And then if it comes in, maybe Johnny had more mastery, and so I'll say, hey, let's have you take over this next skill. You're going to do the intervention on that, because obviously she had a little technique that worked. We do this a lot with literacy and math. I love the literacy part. She loves the math part. So we switch.
And share ideas.
Right, exactly. The whole idea of these formative assessments during the process, you want to learn from the people on your team. You want to ask for help. You want to say, hey, what's working, what's not working. And then there's times when neither of us, have scores that we like. And that's when we have to go and start investigating other techniques and looking for different things. And we do that during our team meetings.
We're assessing constantly.
Right. We know every letter a child knows day to day, it seems like. These are some of our formative assessments that we give students the opportunity to improve on his or her learning, because it informs both the teacher and the students as to appropriate next steps in the learning process. And that's what it's about. It's about their learning. It's not about if they learned it the first time I introduced it or the fifth time I introduced it. Ooh, these lights. Sorry. We want to give all of our students, we're giving them chances up into the absolute last day of school. If it takes them that long to master a skill, then that's okay with me. They mastered it. So I'm going to show you at Bowman, we use data notebooks. And our kiddos will track their, this happens to be one of our sight words. This is for third quarter that we pulled. The child will have set their goal. How many sight words did they want to meet? For this one, it looked like they needed to know 19 for the third quarter. So if it's a struggling student, they might have just said, I want to know 6, or I want to know 25 words. So they will have set their goal right here.
And they actually write it in with their
pencil. Right. They write their goal. Then they read their words and they circle the words that they read correctly. And they can write that number.
So they're counting.
They're counting their number and they write it. Then at the end,
if they reach that goal, they set a new.
Yeah. You can see it has all the words. There's more than 19 words on there. So then they count theirs. They decide, did I reach my goal? If they didn't reach their goal, they might say, my goal was a little too high. If they had set their goal for 26 and they only mastered 12, we might talk to them about, well, what about if we just think, do you think you could do 15? Do you think you could learn 2 new words or 3 new words by the next time we assess? And we usually assess every week. Some students possibly 2 times a week. If it's that struggling student, we may give them 2 different opportunities, say Wednesday and Friday, that they will assess and try to move up their goal.
And we have to also, because kindergartners are so funny, I'm going to read 1,000,000 words next time, so we have to make it realistic goal for them, and help them with that.
And this was one of the things that I struggled with, because I thought, I do not have any more time in the day for me to visit with 20 kids every day or, every other day. And so I team my kids up with another grade level, and they come down and they help mentor my kiddos. They have a child that they'll work with, and they talk about their goal, and they help them set realistic goals. And the kids like that. And their team member that's maybe in 4th grade is excited when they do meet their goal, and or when they see them in the hallway, they'll say, hey, did you meet your goal today? So it's that camaraderie that the kids really enjoy.
And these data notebooks are kept in a place in the room where, we have chair pockets, but those get filled up pretty quickly. So we might have a drawer, like a little tower drawer, and the kids can go right to get their data notebooks when they need them.
And I will say, when we started with data notebooks, we were overzealous. I think we had all of our essential standards in this data notebook. We were going to assess, all the, the 5 literacy, the 5 writing, the 5 reading. Oh my goodness.
We started tearing out pages pretty quick.
Right. Well, I think we lost some hair first.
And we're not allowed to have a breakdown on the same day either.
That's one of our norms for our team meetings, that we cannot have a meltdown on the same day. And even during this process, 7 years, there are still days that, I have to be the cheerleader or Johnny is the cheerleader. I mean, we depend on each other for everything, and, for that moral support. But so, like I said, we did learn. We backed off. It's like start slow. So this is a sight word. I'm going to show you. We have an alphabet letter common assessment.
And we just created these ourselves.
Now, our district will send us a common assessment, or a formative assessment that we do. Summative, excuse me. Well, because we can do it every day. Every day. But we do use ours because it has it's alphabet letters. So we do use the ones that we have. So just like our sight words, this has all the alphabet letters, as you can see. They'll write their goal. Then after they've practiced several times during the day, when it's time for them to assess with their partner, they circle the ones that they know. Sometimes the partner has to help them and say, that was actually a C and not a K. And so they can erase if they accidentally circled something.
And these data notebooks are discreet too, because it's only for that child's eyes. They don't have to, expose it to the rest of the class. Some kids are going to have a higher goal than other kids. And so it's not intimidating to anybody.
Right. But the kids do share them. I mean, they want to share their notebook. And in kindergarten, the kids are so supportive of one another, even if there's a student that has recognizes all the letters, they're still very helpful and nurturing with that student that's struggling, that only knows 11 letters, and they'll help them during free time or station time to encourage them to, get a few more. And they're so excited when they do. Yeah. And when our kids meet their goal, they go throughout the building with their data notebook and show the custodian, they show the cooks, they show the principal, they show anybody who is willing to listen, they show their progress. So let's see.
And kind of like what Lexi was saying out in the hallway, when they have that racetrack with the little cars and they move them along, kind of the same thing. We have for instance, on the math, we have a little clip thing where I can count to 25 and they clip their name to that. I can count to 50 and they clip their name to that. And then it'll even say my next goal is, once they've reached that goal, my next goal is to help someone else be able to count to 50 or to whatever number.
Right. So, and we take all of this information weekly to our team meeting. And this is the stuff that we go over, and we are looking, and we use our scores for everything. And we may have a literacy group going for swarm time, and we may even have a math group going at the same time. We form our groups on basically what our kids need. This is a writing assessment that we've developed. Johnny's great with the computer. Me, not so much. I'm old fashioned cut and paste. But so whatever assessment we're giving, they would use this. Like I said before, we're never dropping off skills. We're always continually incorporating the skills that we've introduced, prior, still making sure that we're using them. This reminds the students, I will draw a picture. I will use a capital letter. I'll use a finger space. I'll chop my words. That chopping comes from Hegarty. So we're incorporating our phonics with our writing here. We'll use a period. Most of our writing prompts that we use, we take from our science and our social studies units. Whatever we happen to be studying about, that's going to be what our kiddos write about. We'll give them this formative assessment at the beginning of our quarter, at the beginning of each unit, and then we save them and can see the growth at the end. It's the very exact same assessment. And I think that's important to remember, because we at the very beginning, when we started this process, that's probably one of the things we did not do. We each gave our own, assessments. We didn't have a common one. And then we realized when we were coming to the table to compare, sometimes she had apples and I had oranges, and it was hard to put the kids in the categories that they needed to be. We weren't giving them both the same. She might have had more structure words on it that they could use where I didn't have anything. So we really realized, hey, that commonality is a pretty important factor, and we need to get on board with that. So, and it is helpful.
Yeah. And this piece, this formative assessment here on the writing, that's so interchangeable for any, narrative, informational, or, whatever kind of writing. And it's given the kids their own little checklist right there on each time they write, they check off what, that they remember to use in their writing. And it's funny, like I know I would go by to check in on when they were writing, and they would have checked every little line. And then I'd ask them about it when they read their story to me, and they're like, oh, I didn't do that, but they go, they're 5, they're going to check off all those things. But if you go back and meet with them and continually to do that consistently, then they start self-checking themselves a lot better.
Go ahead.
Is this something that y'all could email to us? I just really love this assessment. If that's any way possible.
Yes, we will share all of our resources and things. Yes.
I think we have everybody's email.
Yeah, and if you want to send those to me, I have everyone's email address, and I'd be happy to send those out. And then we'll also post, I will ask them for their presentation and any of their handout stuff, as well as the recording will be posted on the ADE DESE website, and then the ADE DESE ERZ website too.
Good. And then just to sum it up, a summative assessment gives the students the opportunity to prove what he or she has learned. And like I said before, the biggest piece of advice that I can give is don't ever use these as to critique one another. You're a team, we're in this together, and you don't feel bad about what you're bringing to the table, because some years it seems like you know, she might always bring all these flowing grades. And I'm like, I'm filling up my kids with the swarm times. And then, you know, the other years, you know, it's vice versa. So, but it's hard. You know, the first thing you want to go is like, well, how in the world did you get all your students to master that skill? So that word of wisdom is don't take it personally. You know, look at this as a growth. What can I glean from you? What can I share with you to make you more successful? We want to build our team up. We do not ever want to take tear anybody down on our team. Our team is important. They are our lifeline. You know, we use our counselor on our team a lot to help our little kiddos with their social needs that they have or their mental, you know, well-being. It's not all about the academics. You know, we have to service all these kids where they are.
Yeah, and it's, you know, each teacher might shine in a different area. And I know when one of our first meetings with Solution Tree, they said, you know, when you go to the doctor, you know, you have an illness or whatever, an issue, and if they don't know it, then they're going to call in the specialist, you know, that's a little bit better in that area. And so you just work with your team. And when you see someone's got something going on that's working, then you brainstorm, you know, you pick each other's brain and you share those ideas and you share kids. You know, they're not my kids and her kids, they're our kids. And we know all of the kids, you know, individually, whether they're in my class or her class.
And we keep ownership of these kids as they move through, well, I guess it's 5th grade now. Yeah. We just moved our 6th grade out. But I mean, we are completely involved with what's going on.
We're invested in them.
Yes, exactly. And they come back and they tell us, you know, they show us their strengths, there's, you know, the things that they're proud of. Just like, you know, I had said before, if we have a 4th grader that's struggling, they'll come down and sit in my classroom and help me during my phonics study. And they are just being my helper in their mind. My kids love it, love that extra attention, but they're sure picking up the language and they're picking up that phonics and they're picking up that alphabet ID and that letter sound or that rhyming. They're picking up that skill that they need to take back to 4th grade to be successful. So
yeah, a lot of peer tutoring.
So any other questions?
All right. Thank you, ladies. Lots of good, valuable, real information that can be utilized and easily integrated into the classrooms. All right. We are going to go ahead and take a lunch break. As you're having this break, think through if there's any piece that you've heard, anything that you have a question about, jot that down. When we come back after lunch, we will talk about the Rti process, which is definitely a big piece of this puzzle, is that Rti process. We will also review any resources that we have used today and answer any questions. So during the break, be thinking of any piece of this that has resonated with you that you have a question about. And after lunch, we can work on making sure that when you're finished with today, you have a lot of information ready to take back to your kindergarten team and to share with your building. So we will see you back at 12:30. So we'll take a break until 12:30. Lindsay, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was just going to ask everyone if they can stay logged in, and obviously you can turn off video and mute and all of that stuff, but if we can stay logged in, and I will pause the recording and then pick that back up. But that's it. Sounds great.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, we will see everybody back at 12:30. Miles an hour trying to figure out how I want to implement everything. So welcome back. At this time, we're going to begin the RTI section. So the section where we will look at the RTI process, what you thought RTI was and what it really is. I know we had to do some brain shifts whenever we started researching the RTI process and what we traditionally thought about with the RTI process and what it is now. So Johnny and Karen are going to go over with us the RTI process and how all of that fits into this puzzle. So thank you, ladies.
Okay, here we are. And RTI response to intervention. We're going to talk about the purpose and the tiers for RTI. Let's see. I did the video again. We keep hitting the wrong button. Okay. Here we go. So here's the traditional RTI pyramid, where the pyramid is the smaller part on the top. Tier 3, intensive individual intervention, and Tier 2, targeted small group instruction, and Tier 1, the core classroom instruction. And also I know that RTI is not just to place students in special ed, it's to reach those students while they're in the classroom and meet them where they're at and bring them up to as close to on grade level as you can, or even beyond with enrichment. I'm going to refer to, and I'm going to go ahead and click to what the pyramid looks like for the PLC process. They basically have just flipped the pyramid so that the whole group, the classroom is on the top. That's where all of the students are. And I think they kind of refer to it as like a funnel, so that we're all at the top. This is the whole classroom. And then we go down to each tier to reach the students where they are. Tier 2 again is the where they get the intervention help through our small group, and that we get our groups through the data that we take off of our assessments to see who has mastered a skill and who has not. I'm just going to go through on the book Learning by Doing on page 167. Let's see. And again, this is just skill by skill, student by student, how we form our groups for intervention. So RTI is to address we have 4 realities. Often they're captured visually with the shape of a pyramid. The base of the pyramid represents the school's core instruction group. Like I said, we flipped it. PLC has flipped it to where the base is at the top, where the core group of instruction and the students. And that the purpose of the Tier 1 is to provide all students access to essential grade level curriculum and effective initial teaching. So everyone in the classroom. When the core is taught well, most students should succeed most of the time without the need for additional help. But some students may not master the essential curriculum by the end of the unit, and we must dedicate time to provide these students additional support to master the essential grade level curriculum without missing that critical new core instruction. So therefore, they're still in the classroom, receiving the new instruction from the curriculum, not being pulled out. And this supplemental help to master grade level curriculum is the second tier in the middle. They receive the supplemental support. Some students even need intensive remediation in foundational skills, and we have to plan to provide this level of assistance also. And this is the intensive support, and that's the Tier 3 for intervention. And in this Tier 3, we want the most highly skilled staff to be working with those students on their targeted area of need. The approach is called a multi-tiered system of interventions because students are not moved from tier to tier. Instead, the tiers are cumulative. So all of the kids are in tier 1. We're all still together with tier 2, just providing supplemental resources and help. And then tier 3, that's the smallest group in our class. That's why they have flipped the pyramid as a funnel, like a funnel idea.
And this is all skill by skill. So just because a student falls in, tier 3 in math, they may be tier 1, very successful in literacy.
And it's very fluid. As soon as they catch on to, and they've mastered those standards and those skills, then they no longer need to receive that supplemental assistance or intervention. And we may have someone else that they're at a point now where the standard was tough for them. And so now that group has changed up. Our groups are very fluid, and the skills are very fluid. When we meet with our team meeting, we may have to stay on math essential standards for a week or 2 weeks, because even the 2-week period that we really poured in extra support, they maybe just haven't mastered it yet. So we stick with math maybe for 2 weeks, and then we move into literacy. And then we may even do both. We may have two interventionists. One takes a group for math and one takes a group for literacy. And then the bulk of the class will stay with us, and we can even switch kids off. And that's our time to switch off with some kids. If Karen might be stronger in the literacy, so I may move some kids over to her, and then I might take the math group. So it's just whoever is the most, I guess, specialty in that area, just use that person.
But we're constantly, week after week, every time we come to our team meeting, every 2 weeks, we have new data, and we're constantly shifting kids, making sure that they are still in the group that they need to be in. Sometimes they can move up a little tier, they don't need that tier 3 intervention. They've gotten it. And so we move them and switch kids around. It's important to remember that just because you put a group together in September, that group is not going to stay the same in October and in January. You're always constantly moving your kids around and doing what they need to master those skills.
Skill by skill, student by student. And we might even switch up whoever works with those kids. Like we had, let's just say, I'm going to say a Miss Smith that was helping in math, and then say a Miss Jones was in literacy. Then we may switch those kids around because what they need is somebody else's specialty. So we're gonna call in the people that we feel like are the most going to be the most beneficial to help those kids, because we just want to reach them where they're at and move them along. And I think the most important thing is that all students must have access to grade level essential curriculum as part of their core instruction. So there's kids that haven't quite mastered everything as maybe other kids in the class, but they all need to be exposed and have access to that grade level curriculum.
We're never doing new teaching when a swarm group is going on.
No,
we're always reviewing and
oh gosh, and we're in the dark again, but it's coming back on. But yeah, when we are doing our formative assessments and we're looking at that data, we're using that data to form our groups, and that is how we use our response to intervention. Most intensive support again is in tier 3. The core group is at the top, tier 1. I think we'll go to I want to go to the next slide. I think this next slide might be, this is just a real short 1 minute, 47 second. So it's less than 2 minute video with Mike Mattos from Solution Tree. This is on YouTube, so it's out there for anyone. If you just Google that, you'll see his input and how he's speaks about RTI, and it's basically, it's the why we do RTI. Okay, so this will be just a short little video. And
RTI is not a new way to qualify kids for special ed, and it's not an elementary reading program. And I see that all over the country right now. It's a new way to qualify kids for special ed. No, it's not. The RTI research didn't even start around special needs kids. You want to know where the RTI research started from? People asking a question. The question was, what do we got to do to make sure every kid succeeds in school? That's where the research came from. This isn't a special ed law. It's an every kid law. About providing kids what morally they deserve. That's what we're talking about. And how do we do it? And why we got to do some things differently today. I want to ask you, have I given you enough compelling reasons to be willing to listen to the next 3 days? You see, if you don't see a compelling reason to change, why would you care about how to change? And I'm fearful across America that right now what we're doing to most teachers is this. We're telling them what to do and how to do RTI, but we're not talking about why. And if teachers don't understand why, they shouldn't care about the what. And you as participants, as we learn, if you don't understand the why of RTI, why would you care about the what? You'll be doing it just because it's a federal mandate, and that's compliance. And trust me, fail. You're doing it for the wrong reason.
okay. So he puts it in pretty simple terms, the why we do it, because if we don't know why we're doing it, we're just being compliant, and we don't want to, that we want to know why we're doing it. We're doing it to help the kids and reach them where they're at and move them along. So creating a multi-tiered system of interventions. Basically, this is kind of reiterating what I said earlier, that all students must have access to grade level essential curriculum as part of their core instruction. So that's going to be the tier 1, the top tier, if you're looking at it as a funnel. And at the end of every unit, some students will need some additional time and support to master this essential grade level curriculum. That's going to be tier 2, where we give them a little extra help. And then some students will enter each school year lacking essential foundational skills that should have been mastered in prior years. That's going to be the tier 3, where they have not mastered it, even, and we're going to give them that intensive intervention, tier 3, and that would be towards the tip of the funnel at the bottom. Some students will require all 3 of these outcomes to learn at high levels. And we don't want to forget the enrichment also. Response to intervention, definitely, we want to reach those kids that need that extra help and that extra support. But then you're going to have a group of kids that need that enrichment. They've mastered those skills. They've proven it in their assessments. And we want to challenge them and give them some more challenging work and to move them along, to keep them motivated and interested.
A lot of times when we're doing our swarm time, when we divide all of our kids, the learners that are on grade level where there should be, like Johnny may take those and do an enrichment activity. We've even had where our counselor will take the children and do an enrichment activity. It just depends on how many kids are in each group, because sometimes when you're putting kiddos in groups, you may have just one kiddo that needs a specific skill, and yet it's an essential skill, and we've really got to work on that. So someone needs to take a majority of our kiddos, and we do. You have to think outside the box, who can help you out. We have our custodian. We'll grab our custodian to help us out. We that we have our speech pathologist who loves pulling the kindergarten groups because she uses it as a time to even, listen to the kids and model, good language and pronunciation of things. We use all of our facilitators. We even do a lot of peer tutoring, and where teachers mentor our students. If we have some little struggling learners that just, come from a hard home life, we have upper grade teachers that will come down and they will help during our swarm time, just to be another positive role model. Because a lot of times these kiddos that are in our intervention groups are the kiddos that need the most attention. They're the ones that they didn't want to do it in class. They probably don't want to do it in small group either. It takes a lot to get them motivated to do it. But so we think outside the box all the time, who is available. We've had our nurse pool people. It's just, if you are walking our halls and you're available, you're probably going to get pulled for a swarm group or, to help out. So.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because we do have teacher mentors, because sometimes then we all have the behavior issues in the classroom, and it's disruptive and it is distracting. And so we'll have a mentor teacher come in and work one-on-one with a student that just is the behavior that we don't know what, was going on at home before they came to school that day. And if they can just kind of distract them and get them motivated into the school mode, and then that little bond that they've formed with their mentor really helps out, because it's not that they can't, it's, will versus skill. And so we've got to get them wanting to do it. We know they can do it. And sometimes that behavior just gets in the way. And instead of taking the classroom teacher's entire attention and for that one, we can pair them up with the mentor that comes in and kind of stops in and checks on them. Could be during our swarm time, it could be any time. And like I said, skill by skill, student by student, whatever they need to move them along.
And it's that philosophy that the entire staff has to understand that that's how it works. These are all of our kids. It's not just the kindergarten kids. It's all of our kids, and we can all be there, whether you are a 5th grade teacher, whether you are the PE coach, the music teacher. We want everyone to be on board and feel the success just as well. When someone brags on a kindergarten student, well, it wasn't just us. It was the 1st grade teachers giving us good advice. It was that 4th grade teacher that helped pull a swarm group. It was that PE teacher that helped that success as well. We are all in this together.
Yeah, it's a community. It's definitely community involvement, and you've got to get the whole building to buy into it, so to speak. But you need their support, and because whatever, once you can zero in on the students' interests of what they are interested in, and whoever it takes to get to that point with the student, we'll do it. We'll take whatever steps we need to and pair them up with whoever can create that bond with that student and help them. I can't say enough, student by student, skill by skill, and whatever it takes. It's a community. When Karen and I first went to our first PLC seminar workshop, we came back, and I think that's when we had other upper grade teachers saying, well, I have a student in my class that they can't, they're reading on kindergarten level, or their math is on kindergarten level. They would come in, I know, into the classroom, the kindergarten classroom. And then we were like, hey, let's reciprocate that. We've got some kids that they need enrichment. Can we put them in your 1st grade class with a reading group, or just, hear that and get exposure to that, because that's where they're at. That's where they need to be. And so it's got to be, the whole building is involved, and it's a community. It's our kids, not my kids. I close the door and I'm on my own. It's everyone's in and out, helping wherever they can help. And let's see. So the foundation, trying to implement RTI response to intervention, without creating a school culture and structure that aligns with the PLC practices, is like trying to build a house starting with the roof. Without a proper foundation, no structure can stand. RTI is an essential piece of the puzzle to ensure student success. And PLC is that puzzle. And that's what we were talking about, how it's a community. It's the whole school, the culture of the whole school. We need everybody on board. One person can't do it all. No one teacher is an expert in every field. So let's get everybody in to help and shine where you're the specialist.
And everybody is always saying, how can I help? How can I help you? Just like, we're going around going, well, how can we help you? Everybody, we're in this together. And sometimes we feel, because we only have the two of us at our school, we're not at a very large school. We can reach out to other people that have, 6 or 7 kindergarten teachers for advice. So even if you're just a singleton, there is always resources out there. Reach out to us. We can help. If not, we can certainly put you in touch with somebody else. I think that was the biggest thing for us, is that it's okay to say, look, I'm lost. Or I'm drowning, or, and we have cried a few tears. You just have to ask for help, and it's there. It is there.
And it's, you're learning every day. We've done it 7 years, but we learn something new every time we watch another one of those videos, or every time we just, we come across something. There's always a unique child that comes in, and we've got to figure out what's the best way to reach that student. Maybe we haven't run into that yet. And then at the same time, like she was saying, when you're stumped and you need help, reach out, because chances are somebody out there has encountered that, and they know a strategy to share that would help you help that student. And that's what RTI is all about, is reaching those students where they are, not trying to put them in special ed, not trying to place them out of your class, but keep them in the class, getting on grade level core instruction, and moving them along to feel successful. And then when you get all these other staff helping you in the building, then you get that sense of family, and that these are our kids, and everyone can be proud of them when you see them walking across that stage or across the room to get a certificate or an award, because there was a lot of people behind the scenes that went into that to help those kids be as successful as they are.
And it's also a new idea for parents as well. At first, when we started all of this process, we didn't necessarily explain what we were doing to our parents. And part of our team member was our principal. And so kids were going home going, I went to the principal's office today and, worked with Alphabet, or I did this, or, and so parents were calling going, oh my goodness, what happened? And we're like, oh, no, this is a good thing. This is a great thing. So it might be helpful to sort of explain to parents, what your pull out means. And the kids now completely understand, when they go to another classroom, they know it's not because they're low or because they didn't catch a concept. I mean, they don't go home and say anything like that. They understand that this is just their time, that they're going to get their extra little motivation to master that skill. But it is, you have to explain it to parents.
I had to turn the lights back on, so I had to leave for a second. Yeah, and sometimes the parents will say, well, who's this Mrs. So-and-so? Why are they working with that teacher? What's going on? We're like, well, they're the specialty in that area. We wanted your child to get a little extra help there. And parents, we've never had a parent argue about giving their child extra help.
No, and the parents love it. Once they realize what's going on, I mean, they love it. And they love that their child is supported by a first grade teacher, because then when it's time to go to first grade, our kids already know the first grade teachers. They're not afraid of it. They're not, it's not a scary place. I mean, it's part of our family. It's our extended family. So it's a very good thing.
Yeah, once you build that culture in your school, it's a positive environment. It's a positive thing that, like I said, we've never had anybody complain about giving their child extra help. Sometimes they're right on the bubble too, and just that extra little help that just really pushes them over. On this next slide, we have our, this is another kind of at a glance. You can see we had this posted on our big site, the Ballman Information Center, that was created by our media specialist, Steve Marion. And this is our planner agenda. We have our team meeting agenda here and our school-wide swarm or growl, however you want to call it, time. So I will click on the team meeting agenda. What you're seeing here, this is last year's 2021. Every week when we have our team meeting, we will click on that date and enter our data from our team meeting. And the team meeting will involve the classroom teacher and in the interventionist, anyone that's been a part of our intervention time. Now, I know we have a lot of people helping throughout the building, throughout, different times. They won't necessarily come to those meetings. This is just the classroom teachers, Karen and I, and then our interventionist that will be at those meetings. And it's important to say too, that the principal doesn't sit in on these meetings to monitor us. And so we're, it's more relaxed. She'll pop in just to see how things are going, check in with us, and then she's on about her way. But it's the teachers and the team that's providing the intervention and the instruction to the students. And we're all bringing our pieces together, our data to compare and talk about forming groups and where we want to go next.
And we all have a job in the meeting. There's the timekeeper, there's the person that keeps everybody on task. There's also the person that enters everything in on the computer, filling out our agenda. So we each have a job that's important.
Okay, so here's the agenda. And this is our template that they've created for us. And there's not going to be any information in here because it's all been wiped out getting ready for the 21, 22. What is this? Yeah. That seems unreal. Okay, let's see. So we would just have this pulled up during our meeting, and one person would be the person that enters the data. We start off with the standards. Well, actually, we like to start off with our celebrations. We come together and we say, all right, what celebrations do we have? What can someone tell us that you've, super excited about seeing? And we'll name individual students and how they jumped up maybe a level in iStation, or how they mastered, they met their goal in their data notebook, and then they, even surpassed that goal. So we definitely want to do your celebrations. And then we get into the targets that we've been working on for the week, because generally we have our meetings on a Friday, let's say. So we've been working all week. We come together on Friday, talk about what target skills we were working on. We bring our data, our assessments, so we can see who has mastered, and to know if, have the students learned and what proof we have of learning, mastered their skills. We enter our results, how many students. We both have 20 kids in our class, so we'll make it out of 40, and results of how many reached the goal of the target we were working on. And it could be math, it could be literacy.
And this will be also where we put, if sometimes we'll come up with an assessment and it just didn't work as well as we thought it would, and so we'll make sure we make note of that. We're not going to use that assessment again.
Yeah. Sometimes, because every year you get a different group of kids, and their needs are different. And what we might have anticipated we were going to do, we're like, wow, they all just flew through that. We don't need to waste any more time on that. We're going to do something else. But so we'll enter our data here with the results, and then where it says intervention / extension groups, We'll list the students and what teacher's going to be working with them. Extension groups, that's for the enrichment. We want to move, don't want to forget that group of kids. Then we'll enter our iStation data, which we practice iStation on a daily basis. We have time set aside, this is, get your laptop out. We're going to go to iStation for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, just for practice. And then that way, when it comes time for the real assessment for the month, we can see the graph of their growth. And we'll list our iStation data here on the.
So we're really watching those critical and at-risk kiddos, trying to see what we can do to improve their iStation score.
Yeah, we definitely look at the iStation data. We go into the program where it will it breaks down each skill in that standard, and so we can say, okay, well, it looks like they're doing great in math, or looks like they're doing great in literacy, but their phonics is that level 1. Even though they're a level 3, we can go deep into that data and see what is it, phonics, is it rhyming, vocabulary or listening, whatever that skill is that's the only area that they're low in. And then we can use that data also to decide what skills we're going to teach next in our swarm time. And we just list who's on level 1 or level 2 and critical. And sometimes it could be a level 1, but they may not be critical intervention. I think they have to be below the 10 percentile to be considered critical intervention. So we watch closely the iStation scores in reading and in math. Then we have the area for just comments, anything that anyone has something to add to the group. Everyone signs this form at the end. We print this out, everyone signs it, and we turn this into our assistant principal. I think she keeps up with it. Yeah. And then the next week, we'll pull up the next, we'll go to our agenda here and we'll pull up the next week and enter that. And we're always looking back and comparing the data from the previous meeting and what went well, where could we improve, because there's always room for improvement, something that someone's noticed that we need to cover, the next week. And everyone's input is valued and taken into consideration to plan for our next intervention session. So let's see. No. Oh, that's one. I can't find it. Sorry. That one. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, after that, and then you can see by the dates, these are just once a week. Now, things happen. We have an assembly come up, or we have anything can, there's always interruptions. You have things planned and then you may not get to it. You may have to bump it to the Monday and have the meeting or whatever, but it's very important to always have those meetings as regularly as you can, preferably once a week. And we get that time to have those meetings. We've done it differently. We've done it where the kids get an extended lunch recess time, so that they go to lunch, they go to recess, and during that time we're meeting, and we need extra time because I think our meetings are usually an hour.
An hour is great, and we've been having to cut them down. I think we've gone to like 45 minutes. You really need an hour to get everything accomplished, and you have to stay on task, and that's hard. And
no squirrel.
Yeah, and even it's not, like we've said, it's not a time to complain about those kids, or somebody's parent came in and caused this. That's not the time. I mean, you've got your team members, and all their time is significantly important, and so you've got to respect that.
Yeah, and we want to keep that. We want to be able to keep having those meetings. And if the principal popped in and we're all just in there griping or just doing something totally off task, she might say, hey, y'all don't really need that much time, or maybe every other week you need to have a meeting. So we want to be very serious about it and get, as much out of that time as we can, because, we appreciate getting to do it. Now, this past year, we did it at the end of the school day. We had our PE coaches actually came in at the end of the day, like about 2:45 or so. Yeah, they came in about 2:45. One covered her class, one covered my class. So they dismissed for us. And we met up for our swarm meeting and
With
and
the
we-
counselor and the speech pathologist, whoever is on our team.
Yeah, whoever's been involved in working with the students, and then, and then it ended at 3:30. So sometimes we've done our meetings at the end of the day where we only were out of the room the last 15 minutes of the day. So that was dismissal time basically. And then we've done it also in the middle of the day, like I said, where they got just a little extra recess time to give us a chance to take all that data and compare it and put it together and go to our next steps.
Okay, we're trying to go back to this
Oh,
slide.
you want to go back to that?
Yeah. We're going to show you our schedule.
Oh, yeah. Oh, whoa, what happened?
There it is.
Right here, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, this is just a sample of what our principal puts together for us. We take into account everyone's schedules for pull-out lunch and recess and things. As soon as we get all that down.
And this is a sacred time. I mean, nobody messes with swarm time. This is sacred. I mean, we have it. It has to be a significant reason as to why we cancel swarm. I mean, this is just right up there with lunch. Our kids are going to go to swarm every single day.
Yeah, we're going to have that time. It is sacred time where we're going to be working with our kids. So our classes are reduced in number of kids because there's some out of the room working with their interventionist. And
well, we're all working with small groups, and like I might be working, or I'm working with, her kids, my kids, there might be a first grader in there with us. So it, like I said,
there's no new teaching. Yeah, no new teaching. It's just, it's time to go back and visit and help wherever anyone's struggling. Or we might have a group where one of us is providing enrichment and one of us is doing the intervention. Yeah. But, and you can see that this is the schedule we had last year. And so when this year gets started and we get all of our schedules in for lunch and recess and those special classes for pull out, then we'll be able to create our new time, our new schedule for our swarm.
Does growl stand for something?
Some of them we're calling that, we're swarm.
I call it swarm. A lot of people call it growl. I never caught on to that one. Yeah, I think it does.
That was if the school mascot was a lion or something, maybe they called it growl time.
Right.
Okay, so you didn't have an acronym for growl.
There is. Yeah. I'm just not.
Okay. Well, and I know, we used to call our time swarm, and it was just basically, we all gathered together.
That morning. Yeah, that's
Yeah. Okay. Well, that question had come up in the chat box if that was an acronym for something. Okay. Thank you.
I think it is, but I don't know what it is. I always stuck with swarm. But anyway, so here's the time. So it tells you what time. Everybody has this, and so they know, this is what's going on in that classroom. We're not going to bother them. And then the grade level and our support, the people that are involved providing support for the classes. Okay.
And we also, when we talk to our parents, we encourage them, do not check out during swarm. I mean, doctor's appointments and, dentist appointments, don't be late to school, don't miss our swarm time. We really emphasize that a lot.
Yeah. And this time it shows 30 minutes. And that's adjusted sometimes because of travel time, like when the teachers come and get, when they come and get a small group to take with them, they've got that travel time to get back to another area in the building. So
I think our times are usually about 20 minutes, which for, a kindergartner is an acceptable amount of, on task time.
Yeah. So I think that is everything. I think so. Yeah. You're muted.
Sorry. Okay. Let me try that again. So you've heard a lot of resources, and we'll review those resources. So if you need to jot those down, and I'm hoping a lot of your buildings, your districts already have the learning by doing from Solution Tree. Can y'all go to that next screen?
Oh, do you want the?
Yeah, there we go. Because there's the title of the book and the authors. This book is, if you do not already have this, or if you are brand new to the PLC process, this is the first book you need to buy. This is the foundation. This is the back to basics book. So if you do not already have this, make sure you get that. The next book on the next screen is Taking Action. This takes a deeper look into the RTI process. So there's a lot to the RTI process. So this is the next book that I would suggest getting if you don't already have this one. This is a great one to get that swarm going, the RTI process. This is where we also learned about the inverted pyramid as opposed to the traditional. So lots of good information, lots of good scenarios and ideas in this book. Next book, what do y'all have next? Is the What About Us? This book is hot off the press. It has only been available for a few months. This book is specifically, it's kind of like the Learning by Doing for K2. This is specific to K through 2 and absolutely wonderful. I love these authors. Diane Kerr, one of the authors, was our coach at our building. We've also hosted Brian Butler before. This would be a great book. Our kindergarten, our K2 team went through this as a book study this past spring. As soon as it was available in print, we snatched up some copies of this, and our K2 teachers did a book study over this. So if you're wanting to get your primary grades together to do a book study, this would be a great one to do. Fabulous book. Do we have any others listed on our? Okay. There's also the Big Book of Tools, which is another book that it's really good. And it has a lot of the forms and the reproducibles that the ladies have been showing you today. And this is just a big book of all of those resources. However, a lot of them are on the websites that they have also shared. And then Alexi was adding to our, at the end, we'll have some other websites on there for you to refer to or to us. And then also Lindsay said that she would gather up our information to get you what you need to answer those additional questions that you might have, or to listen to something again. But those resources right there are a great place for you to start. Does anybody, there's our email addresses. So if you have any other questions or anything, you have access to our email. So we'll leave that up there for just a minute for you. Over lunch, hopefully you came up with some questions or some thoughts. So does anybody have a question or just anything that they would like to ask these ladies? Everybody's tired at this 1 o'clock on a summer afternoon. That next screen is the list of resources that we used. It has, there we go. There's some of the resources that we did use. They're at the very bottom, the global PD. That, like I said before, that is a wonderful resource. Without even attending a conference, you get to hear the authors of all of these books speak. You watch the little video clips, and the website is very user friendly. You just type in what you're wanting to learn more about, and type in the topic, and then all these articles and video clips pop up. Or like, if you love to listen to Mike Maddow's speak, which he's absolutely incredible, I'll sometimes just type in Mike Maddows and just listen to some of his videos. Just because he is really good. I know Alexi shared the Wiki Teacher resource idea to help you on the Unpacking Standards. Are there any other websites or any other resources that you heard mentioned that you need to hear the website again, or the title, or anything again?
I added the websites to a new slide. I think she just has to refresh the Google slide so that that slide pops up, but it's on there already.
Okay. Let's see if she can get that refreshed. Oh, there's everybody's faces. I hope this has been beneficial. Give me a thumbs up if you got something today. Oh, good.
Okay. Alexi, do you want to share your screen? We quit sharing, so if you want to show that one, you just add it in.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
There we go. That's the global PD, and then that will also take you to where you can the print reproducibles and things that you can print out and just go ahead and start using with your teams. Some great resources that you heard today, as well as just a plethora of other forms. Well, I do hope today was beneficial for you. I hope you got some little nuggets of gold that will help you this year and with your team. Again, if you do have any questions, you now have our email addresses, and then Lindsay will be sharing that other information. Well, we did finish earlier than originally expected, but I'm sure nobody is complaining or or upset about that. But please reach out, not just to us, but to also just other kindergarten teachers in the state. Remember, we are in this together. We need to continue to support each other in the world of education. And there's too much to do for us to do it alone and by ourselves. So let's help each other out. So thank you so very much for today. We appreciate you. And here's last call for questions.
I have more of a comment.
Okay.
I have already had like a 2-day conference with the Big Book of Tools. Wonderful book. But I actually wish I had done this first, because now that I've had this first, the other makes more sense.
Okay.
And in about 2 weeks, I'm going for the second part of the Big Book of Tools.
Okay.
It's supposed to expand it and take it apart a little bit more. It's like a 3-day thing instead of a 2-day thing. But anyway, I wish I had done this one first, because now things kind of tie in a little more, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I kind of put it a little more together than, because I kind of felt something was missing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, okay, this 3-day thing, that's going to kind of tie that together. I didn't realize that this was actually going to kind of tie it, kind of make it make more sense.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Well, good. I'm glad. that's helped blend those together. And that is true. If you do see some different conferences and mini conferences and things, books to read, check to see what order to do them in. I went to a conference that was it was actually like our third year into the process, and there were a couple of ladies there from a school that was just beginning,
Right.
and they were totally lost because
Well, this one wasn't offered first, in my defense.
Okay.
This one wasn't actually offered first, and I was kind of
and
like,
some of them you just attend when you're able to attend.
well, the principal came and said, I want you, and you to go, and I just went, okay. I mean, I don't mind, because I'm one of those, you can't learn too much,
right?
And everything doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
Sometimes it works for you, but it might not work for them.
Yes.
And so you learn as you go. And I mean, I've been teaching, I'm going into my 15th year. So and most of it's been in kindergarten. 11 of those years have been in kindergarten. So that's kind of my forte. And no year is ever the same. So don't get down. If it doesn't work, don't get down. Just try something else.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But yes, if your school is brand new to this concept of the PLC process and working with Solution Tree, don't go to one of the specialty conferences before you've gone to the basics. Learning by doing. You'll be too lost. There's too many pieces to the puzzle. So that was a good point that you have to kind of build the house as you're going, I guess, or build the plane as you're flying. So, all right, anything else?
Well, I was just going to say another thing. I know Solution Tree, they're real quick to say this is not a program. It's a process. So it's not like, oh, here comes another program that's going to be thrown to the wayside. This is a process, and it's very effective, and it works. It really does.
Yes. Yes. Good point. Thank you, Johnny. It is a process, not a program. It's not a cookie cutter program. It is a process. All righty. Everybody good? Okay. Have a wonderful rest of your summer. I hope that you do take some time for something relaxing and something fun. And hopefully you're not doing PDs every day. So enjoy, rest up. You've had a full year this past year. So make sure you do take some time to take care of yourself, rest, relax, and get ready for next year. All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.